So I just got finished at the gym, but I thought it'd be an interesting subject to talk about what kind of equipment should you get for a home gym. So I thought it'd be good to just do a little bit of a video just to kind of describe what kind of equipment I look for and why I use certain types of equipment. First of all, I'm going to start with the bar. One thing I noticed even at my gym, there's different types of bars, and you may have noticed like there's bars with a bolt in the end. I can't stand this type of bar. It has a bolt in the end here, like an Allen key. So you have to tighten it up all the time, otherwise it gets loosened. And at the same time, this doesn't actually rotate. Once this is tightened up, then the bar stops rotating, so it's really hard on the shoulders or the wrists when you're curling. And if you're squatting, because the momentum of the bar rotating like this is so stiff, it actually ends up rolling down your back, so it's harder to keep the bar on your back when you're squatting. There's bars that have bearings in them, there's bars with knurling, there's bars without knurling. And the fact is, if you want a good bar, you want to make sure you're making the right choice. So first thing to consider is how much weight are you going to be putting on this bar, period. Whether it's for shrugs, squats, deadlifts, or anything like that, because you want to make sure that you have the right bar. I know a lot of guys that have a bar that's only capable of handling 1,000 pounds, but as soon as they bounce 500 pounds or 600 pounds off a rack, say they're doing heavy rack deadlifts or heavy shrugs, then what happens is the momentum of the weight will bend the bar, and then you end up with a situation like this. This is a horrible bar, horrible. Okay, so if you don't want to end up with a situation like this, you need a bar that can support more weight than what you're going to put on there, because you have to account for momentum. So I'd recommend getting a bar that can support about 1,500 pounds. A lot of powerlifting bars can support this type of weight. So if you're going to be doing heavy shrugs and bouncing the weight off a squat rack or doing deadlifts where you're just bouncing the weight all over the place, I'd recommend a bar that can support way above what you're going to take. So 1,500 pound bar would be what I'd recommend if you're doing 600 pound shrugs, 500 pound shrugs, and just dropping the weight. Second of all, if you're going to be doing this for CrossFit, or if you're going to be doing for bodybuilding or powerlifting, this is important, because if you're going to be using your bar for CrossFit and you're just mainly interested in overhead presses and power cleans and all that sort of thing, you don't really need the middle knurling, you know, the grip that's in the middle, and it'll just tear your chin to pieces, right? But that knurling is great for squats because it helps keep the bar on your back. If you want to get a bar for squatting or for bench pressing and all this kind of stuff, having a knurling on there ensures a proper grip. So for squat, that middle bar knurling just keeps that bar right on my back so it doesn't slide down. If you have an Olympic lifting bar or a CrossFit type bar on your back, it'll slide up and down really easily. So in that case, if you get that type of bar, I'd recommend taping the middle of it if you're going to use it for bodybuilding or powerlifting reasons, okay? Now third, this is a big mistake I see a lot of people make with a bar. They go cheap because they think it's just a great idea to go cheap on a bar. Hey, whatever, I got a $60 bar or $80 bar, and then they have this bar at home with these bolts in the end. Now, there's a couple reasons why I don't like this. One is, eventually the bolts loosen, and one day if you don't check, there's a possibility that the thing might come unscrewed in the middle of a lift and then cause a devastating injury to you, okay? That's one thing. Number two though, the reason why I don't like the bar mostly is because the sleeves don't rotate, so they don't allow the bar to transfer back and forth like this during a bench press movement. Not a bad bar, not too bad, but at least it spins, right? There's no bolt in the end. A lot of movements aren't just straight up and down. A lot of times there's side movements and the bar's here, but the weights can stay facing a certain direction, and then the bar in the middle of the weight can just continue to rotate. Now this helps alleviate some extra momentum, and also it helps you keep the bar on your back, because say I'm squatting and I come down like this, the plates will start to rotate forward, and then when I come up, then the plates will start to rotate backward, okay? And when they rotate backwards, now the bar starts to roll down my back. That's the last thing you want. So having a sleeve that rotates will not only ensure that you keep the bar on your back under heavier loads, you'll also be able to preserve your shoulders and your joints from having to deal with that momentum of the plates forward and back. So a lot of times people use these collars that rotate because this is essential in alleviating injuries and also helping you be able to be the most efficient you can be with lifting the most amount of weight as possible, okay? So that way you're not just fighting the grip, you're not fighting the balance, you're not fighting the equipment, you're actually just there to lift. Another thing that's not considered by people as well when they get a home gym, or if they're at a gym, is what type of collar to use. I would never recommend these clips. These clips get loose over time, so you put the clip on, and this one actually is pretty snug for a clip, but as you can see, it does this. All these clips just wear out over time, so it's not even worth it. So I'd get the LOCKJAW collar clip, which I have the link down below if you want to get it. But the LOCKJAW collar clip that I have at home is the best clip I've actually used. This one just, just gets loose over time and it just stops doing its job, so what's the point? I'll leave links down below to the bar and to the collar that you should get for your home gym. Now this collar is awesome. It's the best collar I've ever used. In the last 4 years that I've used this, it hasn't loosened, it hasn't gotten worse, it hasn't shown any sign of wear and tear whatsoever, and it always keeps the weight on the bar perfect. So it never loosens. It's just a great collar to put on your bar to keep the weights on. The third thing you need for a home gym is a power cage of some sort. If you're planning on doing bench presses, squats, deadlifts, rugs, any of these types of things, standing overhead press, a power cage is one of the most cost-effective and best pieces of equipment you can have for a home gym, because it not only spots you, you can set up the racks accordingly, whether you're doing bench press or squat or whatever, to make sure it's safe, but it also allows you to do so many different exercises. So what do you look for in a power rack? Well, first of all, it has to be sturdy. That's the first priority. So you want to make sure you check the reviews. If you're going to buy from some website somewhere or on Amazon or something, check the reviews and find out how sturdy the power rack is. Most power racks are pretty sturdy. Most of them are welded really well. Like I said, my power rack, I only spent about 500 bucks on it, and it was really sturdy, really well. It's held up with 300-400 pounds on it, no problem. That's the first priority of the power rack. It has to be sturdy. Second is it adjustable? So this is what I mean by adjustable. And I really like this too. This is really easy to adjust. There's even numbers here, so you can tell what number you're at, so that way it's easy for you to remember where you bench pressed from last. So if you're setting up your bench or standard bench, then you know exactly where to set it up. So it's quick, so you're not getting in and out or on and off the bench, just to make sure you have the right setting. So it's easy to remember, see? So, yeah, I've had this for 4 years now, and no problem. This continues to be spring loaded. It continues to work. I haven't had any problems with it. The more adjustable it is, the better. I mean, you want to be able to adjust the spotter bars. You want to be able to adjust the rack, and you want to be able to make sure it will fit you depending on your height and dimensions. If the holes are too far apart, then it's not very adjustable. You see, like you have to make too dramatic a jump, and so that'll affect you on bench press and on squat, on shrugs. It'll be harder for you to actually find the right placement for the bar if it's not adjustable enough. See, we have the same format here on the spotter bars. You can pull the clips out on both ends and then just slide up and down. And you can see there's numbers here too, clear numbers. So you know that if you're doing deadlifts or barbell rows or whatever, and you're used to being at the height of 3 or 4 or whatever number it is, and you know what number's too low for you, then it's easy for you to memorize. So it's just one setup. That way you don't have to adjust every single time you work out, just in case you're bad at estimating just by feel. Third is, how easy is it to adjust? There are different power racks that are harder to adjust than others. Some require a wrench. That's kind of a pain when you're trying to get a quick workout in. You want to, just basically adjust the clips quickly in between exercises. You don't want to have to get the wrench out and start wrenching on some sort of bolt or nut or something like that. So check how it adjusts. Check to see if it's really smooth, if the stuff keeps on moving, and if the moving parts actually last. Find out if they're durable. Find out if those parts actually last and they continue to do their job. My rack has been fine. My power rack, the springs and the adjustment clips and everything have been perfect. They haven't actually shown any sign of wear and tear. So most likely you'll be fine. If you're spending around $400 or $500, most likely you'll find a pretty good rack out there. Another thing to consider when you're buying a power rack is that you want to make sure it will fit in the room that you plan on putting it in, okay? Because there are different types of power racks out there, and some power racks are taller than others. Some are based on industrial area type of dimensions. They're used to going into gyms where there's unlimited height available, 20 or 30 feet. So you want to make sure that you have a power rack that will fit in your garage or your basement or whatever room in your house that you're planning on putting it in. And make sure you check the dimensions out, take out the measuring tape, and find out that you're not going to be hitting the ceiling with the rack, okay? I see a lot of people make the mistake of putting a machine in their home gym, and these machines take up so much space and they're very limited in what you can do on them. But a power rack, you can just do squats, you can do lunges, you can do deadlifts, you can do shrugs, you can do bench press. You can even change the height of the incline or the flat, because you can change the rack pins, you can change the heights. It's all adjustable, and it even has a chin-up bar on it. So for the sake of spending $400 to $1,000 or $2,000, depending on what level of power rack you want to get, I'd recommend highly getting a power rack. Now the one I use is a Northern Lights one. It's not a terribly expensive rack. I think it was around $400 or $500 when I bought it. I looked on their website and they don't have any other power racks like this available exactly, but I'll leave a link down below to a couple racks on the internet that you can find and take a look at and see which one suits your needs, okay? So the other obvious addition to your home gym would be a bench. So the same premise applies. Just make sure that it's adjustable. It doesn't really matter as much as the power cage, because if your power cage is really adjustable, you'll be able to actually compensate for whatever type of bench you have, depending on the height and width and all that sort of thing. Find a bench that's kind of comfortable for you. Maybe you see a bench at the gym that you really like. Make sure you measure the width, and then you'll kind of get an understanding of what type of bench will work for your back and what you feel comfortable with when you're bench pressing, because there are different benches of different widths. But otherwise, make sure it's adjustable. Same premise also applies to a bench. Ideally, you'd have a bench press that works as a flat and an incline. That way you can have one bench, and therefore you won't be taking up as much space as having two benches. If you have unlimited space, then I'd recommend go nuts. You know, have a flat bench, have an incline. That way they can always be set up for you. So if you do a chest workout, your incline bench is set up, your flat is set up. But otherwise, if you're in a situation such as my own, and I have a garage and I have very limited space, then I need to have one bench that is adjustable. This one adjusts as well, up and down, and it goes quite steep actually. It's not quite a shoulder press, but pretty much. The most important part though is to make sure that your power cage is super adjustable. So no matter what type of bench you get, you can just adjust the settings on the power cage to compensate for whatever size your bench press is. So I hope this helps you kind of get an idea of what I use for equipment, and at the same time gives you a couple ideas of what to look for in a bar and a power rack and a clips. So I hope this helps, and if you have any questions, just put them down below, and maybe I can make another video if you guys are interested in this sort of thing. And if you want to ask me any questions, you can also go to naturalgallantbodybuilding.com, and I'll see you there. Take care.